Your child has separation anxiety because you, as their primary caregiver, is no longer near them. Their comfort zone is gone. They don't have that comfort bubble. It's gone.
Mm-hmm.
They're anxious. Us as adults get comfortable with certain behaviors that we do, relationships that we're in, habits that we have that might not be good for us, but it gives us comfort. Welcome back to another episode of the Parenting Potential Podcast. My name is Charles,
And I'm Monet.
and we are on episode 4 of season 2. So cool, making progress, right?
Can't believe it.
Yeah. So, those parents out there are people who've taken care of kids, are development majors, human development majors. There's this concept called separation anxiety. I guess, would you call it a concept?
Yeah, it's a milestone really for all kids. And so, really, all parents, whether you are privy to this or not, will experience this at some point because it is an important process for all babies slash toddlers to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a child who at this point has been at least 9 months of age or older, you definitely know what we're talking about.
Yes, and this typically happens where anywhere from like 6 months to 3 year up to 3 years old.
Yeah.
You want to break down in layman's terms exactly what it is for the audience?
Yeah. So if I were to simplify it, I would say let's, I guess, go backwards and say your child developmentally and biologically is going to want to connect to a primary caregiver,
Yes.
you, the parent. And they learn who that person is who's going to meet their needs, who they can trust, who is going to provide all they need since they're babies and they can't do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So the first few months of life, they are just connecting to their primary caregivers and forming that bond, which is so crucial and important. Once they get to truly, I know it can start as early as 6 months, but really that 9 month, like stranger danger, stranger
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, shows more this separation anxiety where it's, yes, there's a part of I don't really want to be near strangers, but more so, I do not want to be separated from my primary caregiver who gives me everything I need. If I'm separated from them, oh goodness, what can I do?
Yep.
That's the layman's terms, I'd say.
And so there are different strategies that you'll probably find out there to help your child cope with this separation anxiety, to make it
And
easier,
help you cope.
help you cope
Mhm.
as a parent. And so, just really quickly, I'll just run the list off from the UNICEF website, unicef.org. And so,
Which this is a resource that we will link below
yes,
that we used as a stepping point of our conversation today.
yep. So, how can you support your child? Talk about what you will do together later. So, so most times you're going to work and your child is like, "Oh no, 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 no," and it's like, "Well, when we come back, or
Mm-hmm.
when I come back, we'll read a book, or we'll have some, warm milk, or I don't know what it is, whatever you can comfort your kid, but like letting them know what you'll do with them."
Mm-hmm.
Right. Another one is practice short separations and work towards longer ones.
Yeah. And one thing I do want to add that this article did touch on is in terms of separation anxiety, one of the biggest obstacles that your child is still trying to learn is that when you separate from them, because you either are dropping them off somewhere or you have to leave, they are learning that, oh, you actually will come back, that these separations are temporary periods of time.
Yep.
And so some of it is, like Charles, you were mentioning, is even giving them that expectation, oh, when I come back, we'll do this. And yes, your 7 month old, 8 month old is not going to necessarily understand that,
Hmm.
but you're trying to comfort them in whatever way and then reassure them so that over time they do realize, oh my goodness, every time my parent leaves, they do actually come back.
Right. So, in a nutshell, separating from what you're comfortable with
Mhm.
makes you anxious. And we're speaking from the lens of a baby, a
Mhm.
toddler.
Mhm.
And so we won't get into the whole strategies on separation anxiety with your kid, but I wanted to bring this topic up because I really struggled with Leilani and her separation anxiety in terms of her just crying, and couldn't understand it.
Mhm.
And something hit me. I don't know when this was or how or where I was, but it made me think as adults, we have separation anxiety. And it might not be at this point from our primary caregiver because we don't really have that, right?
Mhm.
But it might be from mindsets, a mindset, habits.
Mhm.
It might be things that are just not good for us that we don't want to be a part of, or you don't want to not, I guess, what's the word?
Separate from.
Separate, stop doing.
Mhm.
And so let's break this down, y'all. So let me just recap this real quick because we're going to get into some meat here. Your child has separation anxiety because you, as their primary caregiver, is no longer near them. Their comfort zone is gone. They don't have that comfort bubble, it's gone.
Mhm.
They're anxious. Us as adults get comfortable with certain behaviors that we do, relationships that we're in, habits that we have that might not be good for us, but it gives us comfort. And if we left our comfort zone, if we separated from said habit, relationship, mindset, it makes us anxious, but it might be good to separate long term because that particular, let's say, habit, and we'll get into a specific example, might not be good for you. So it's a little bit different from a child, but if you can understand why a child
Mhm.
can have separation anxiety and you have to learn how to cope with being away from said caregiver, then we have to now look at ourselves. So go ahead. What are your thoughts on that?
Because I wonder if we can also think of it like for a child, because it is developmentally appropriate for them to want to be all upon their parent at all times.
Yes.
And definitely having that bond with their parent or their caregiver is a positive thing.
Yeah.
The anxiety that they feel is because they don't understand that maybe, oh, my positive thing is coming back.
Hmm.
And so I think we can definitely come up with examples of us having separation anxiety from things that may not be positive for us. But I also want to kind of dig into maybe some things that are positive or can be positive,
Okay.
but we rely on too much.
Go ahead then. Since you want to jump down that lane, go ahead. Tell me. Give me an example, a personal one.
I think for me, what I was thinking for what I have separation anxiety from, which I talk to you about all the time, but I very much value other people's opinions, takes, whatever, on what I'm doing, on my
Okay.
decision making, on like things that I'm going to be doing. I like to hear what other people think about it before I move forward. Something as simple as before I'm going to maybe prepare a meal, I might just check in with you. Okay, do you think it's a good idea for us to make this meal this week or this meal? And for me, it is very anxiety provoking sometimes, and that can seem very dramatic for something like cooking a meal. But when I don't feel like I have a sounding board of people to jump off of, from the simplest decisions to big ones, I feel like I rely on that a lot.
Validation.
Validation, yes.
So basically, you need other people. You value other people's opinion, right? That's kind of what it is. And if it's different from yours, or if it might make you feel self conscious about you making the decision that they probably wouldn't make or
Yeah.
agree with.
Yes.
And so you're saying that obviously that's really not like a good situation to be in, right?
Yeah, but maybe I could see that as a positive thing, that it's good that I may look to have some insight or get in other people's thoughts on certain things, but it might be to the detriment to the extent that which I do
You
it.
put too much weight onto
Yeah.
what they say.
Yes. In the same way that maybe for a baby, it is awesome that they know, hey, this is my primary caregiver. They're the one that I need. I can't just be wandering away from them because how am I going to survive? But maybe it's to the point of my detriment if I can't have my caregiver just walk out of the room and leave me here for a second because I so need them. So I do think that maybe there's positives in me looking to other people, but I have to change in the way in which I do it.
Yeah, because I mean, think about this, right? You have a kid can't be on the parent 100% of the day because the parent has to go to work typically, right? And so they're gonna have to learn to operate hours without that primary caregiver,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe from your situation, you need to learn to operate from not needing validation. Now you can still get people's opinion, but it shouldn't hold as much weight in your decision making as you give, right? I think you and we again we spoke about this several times, but you don't want to feel like someone is judging your decisions,
Mm-hmm.
even if you were pretty confident in the decision you made. If
Mm-hmm.
someone just questions it a little bit, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh no, I don't want to be seen this way by that person because they are very adamant that.
Mm-hmm. And so I may think I'm making a wrong decision based on certain feedback or what I heard from someone.
Right. And so I guess part of it is just understanding, hey, like before you go seeking anyone's validation, think logically through the situation, right? The
Mm-hmm.
circumstance. Like this does this make sense? Just get the emotional truth out of there and just say, does this like let's just say cooking this meal. The family loves this meal. I like this meal. They'll like this meal. So I'm gonna make this meal.
Mm-hmm.
And they might say we didn't really want that meal this time, but you knew like okay, cool. What's gonna happen now? How does that diminish you anyway?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. And I think if you kind of look at it from that lens, it's like you're making it bigger than it really is. And you're making someone's opinion matter too much.
Yeah.
Right?
So if I think about it this way, the baby who undergoes separation anxiety, which again we agree is a necessary part of their development,
Yep.
some of it could be okay, the parent is going to try to help the baby do those soothing or comforting techniques like you began to touch on that the article highlights.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, a combination of that and just the natural development of the child, they will understand more and more, hey, I don't have to have this level of anxiety,
Yep.
and they'll be fine.
Right.
And I'm wondering how, as adults, how we can navigate through our separation anxiety through whatever we have going on if we're not necessarily developmentally supposed to run through that, or we're not going to have a caregiver who is trying to coax us through.
Well, yeah, it's funny. I was talking to someone, I guess it was about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and they said there's really like two things. There's joy and there's fear. And any feeling that you pretty much experience is going to fall in one of those categories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would say the separation anxiety is in the fear category. And then it goes into this whole flight or fight, which is a primitive thing that we have. I mean, it's just a survival instinct. But when you think about a child, since they're still learning, they're still developing, they think they are in trouble. So
Mm-hmm.
therefore, it's the oh my gosh, like I'm not going to survive. I need to cry to get your attention so that you can come and save me, save my life.
Mm-hmm.
But we as adults know and can use discernment to know when we're truly in a life or death situation. And most chances that you're really not. So if we look at your situation, it's just a need to feel validated by someone else's opinion of what you're doing.
Because of some fear that is not actually truly a life and death fear.
Right. So then you have to do this whole self-talk thing. It's almost you have to say, why does that person specifically, that person's opinion truly matter? And if I don't do what they say or suggested that I do, does it diminish me in any way?
Mm-hmm.
Does it change my life significantly to the point that I'm in danger? And if it's not, then okay,
Yeah.
and that's what happens with kids. Eventually, the child says, "Well, I'm not in danger,
Yeah.
so I can stop crying because this person who is taking care of me, they're pretty nice, and they have cookies and they sing
And at the end
songs,
of the day, I have learned that, yeah, my mom or my dad
routine."
does come back. And oh, that makes a lot of sense.
And
Um,
that's actually like when you think about this whole timeline for development up into three, at about 18, 19 months, the babies start to want to have they're big on routine. So that separation anxiety will eventually go out the window if you stick to a routine. And you can go on the website, the link for UNICEF, and read more of the strategies. But if you are telling them when you come back what you're going to do, and they know that, hey, after 8 hours, I'm going to see my primary caregiver again, and we're going to have dinner, and we're going to take a bath and cuddle and read, all that stuff, then it kind of gets into that. So maybe as an adult, you need to get yourself into a routine of when you experience, and for your example, this sense of separation anxiety, you need to do some self talk. Am I truly in danger?
mhm,
And if you're
mhm.
not, now how do you change your mindset to work backwards so that you don't feel this anxious anymore?
Yeah, if I'm not getting that feedback from somebody else.
Yeah, yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that like any one of us listening to this right now can think of a couple of habits, for example, that you need to kind of separate from because
Mhm.
you're truly not in danger.
Mhm.
You're anxious, but you're truly not in danger.
Yeah. What was yours?
Yeah, so for me, I'm a very sensitive person, very sensitive to the point that I get into my feelings and I react based on my feelings. And if y'all listened to the last season, I believe I hinted on this, but it caused rifts in relationships,
Mhm.
significant rifts. And, you say and do things that are not really, you can't take those back. You can't take it back, right? But it's all based on my feelings. And it's okay to have feelings, but it's how you act based on those feelings. And then I'm just learning this new phrase. a term called emotional truth, right? It's like the Monet's probably rolling her eyes, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
We've been talking about this for about a month now, but the whole idea is that I create these emotional truths in my head to validate my feelings and I act on it. But they're truly not facts.
Mhm.
They're just
Facts that you conjured up
based on
based
how
on
I
your
feel,
emotions.
right?
Mhm.
But I can't prove that person felt that way about me or doesn't care about me or doesn't love me. It's just that's how I feel. Okay, well, that's just a feeling. You can't prove it. And
Mhm.
so I have to learn to separate from feeding too much into my feelings. And the person that I was speaking to about this said that, feelings, it's okay to pay attention to feelings because they're telling your body something, right? There's a
Mhm.
reason why we feel like we're not robots, but we feel because it's telling our body, hey, something is off here.
Yeah.
Well, again, you have to kind of sit down, stop, and think through this, and say, "Hey, is this is this? Can I prove that this is what that person is truly doing to me,
Mhm.
disrespecting me, or whatever it is?" And if I can't prove it, then I have to start to now say, "Okay, now what happens if I act upon how I think I'm feeling right now?
Mhm.
Like, is it gonna improve the situation?
Mhm.
Chances are probably not in the way that I acted, right?
Right.
And so it goes back to your situation. It's self talk.
Yeah.
You have to understand that okay, this anxiety is my body's response to probably a fight or flight situation, and I need to now figure out am I truly in danger? Because if
Mhm.
I'm not in danger, then I need to start to backtrack and think through what am I going to do next? What is the outcome that I want from the situation? And
Mhm.
sometimes it might just be I just need to detach,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I will say something because as Leilani has grown a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more and is slowly coming out of the separation anxiety, or at least does not have it as extreme,
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed, which is also something very developmentally sound and appropriate,
Mm-hmm.
is we recently started both girls in gymnastics class.
Yeah, gymnastics.
And at gymnastics, for Leilani, it's in a group where there are quite a few kids her age with their parents who join the class. And it's an interactive class. So the kids are able to do all types of activities, but the parents are there too and can provide as much support and be with the kids as hands on as kind of needed or desired.
Mm-hmm.
And I notice with Leilani, at the very beginning of class, she is like glued to me, like white on rice. She is just not letting me go, not trying to get away. And she takes a minute, basically until the class is at least halfway, if not 2/3 of the way over. Until she's like, okay. And engaging more and more to doing other things, maybe walking away from me more. But what I have seen from Leilani is that when she does start to go away because she's feeling herself a little bit more and is more confident, she will go off,
Mm-hmm.
explore a little bit, but will turn around and look for where I'm at and then just kind of run back real quick. Just like hug me or do something like, oh my goodness, okay, you're here. And giving herself that, okay, comfort, my mom was still here. And then, yeah, I can go back again. And we learned, I don't know if you remember, Charles, from our class in human
Human bonding.
bonding, this concept of scaffolding too, which I know this wasn't even mentioned in the article we read
That wasn't on
this
the
time.
final.
Yeah. But basically this idea that you are serving as a support as the parent to be there to walk them through certain situations, give them support just a little bit, enough for them to be able to engage in the activity a little bit more, not fully helping them, but not being completely hands off. And it allows the child to feel like, okay, I got I got enough for me to be able to interact safely. And I feel that with Leilani, that she still has some anxiety from completely detaching from me that is the most significant and severe at the beginning. But she slowly gets more and more into the class, engages more. I try to encourage her to engage in
Good.
some
Yep.
ways. Even when it's time for her to maybe help clean up in the class and put the little toys that they were playing with or the little instruments that they were shaking or whatever back into the basket, for she doesn't want to walk over there by her full self. So I'll kind of walk close to her, a little bit behind her, and let her do it, and I slowly back off.
Hmm.
And it's just little things that allow her to engage in it more and more. And so I feel for us it might take that slowly separating from and realizing, okay, I might still need to utilize this crutch in some ways, but I am doing it in a healthy way where I come to it, flirt around with it a little bit, and then go away.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you're trying to separate from, because there's some
Sure.
things that are like it's good to get people's opinions,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not good to put too much weight into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good to be acting off your feelings.
Yeah.
I use it in a negative way.
Yes.
But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's not gonna you're not gonna just rip the band-aid off, because
Mm-hmm.
as human beings, subconsciously we're gonna go back to what we're comfortable with.
Yeah. But it's also a way for you to see, hey, like, that wasn't so bad. For
Yeah,
Leilani,
I
at
like
first,
that.
she didn't come off my thigh. But then it was like, oh, well, I did go over there to do something really quickly. And I was able to then come back. And so give yourself some grace, have patience. And it may not be that overnight, oh, I'm no longer emotional or I no longer need anybody's validation or advice or to speak to them as a sounding board, but this acknowledgement that this is something, hey, like I will be okay if I slow it down a little bit,
Yeah.
or do something a little different. And I think putting yourself maybe in your baby's or your toddler's shoes of this is something that I have to work through, get through,
Hmm.
and realize I will be okay, and maybe feel that discomfort for a minute and see that I didn't completely combust and then everything was okay afterwards can help you to realize like you can get through these things too and support your child as they go through it.
Yeah, 'cause I think part of it, I love the fact that you said the tie-in with slowly
Mhm.
inching out, getting a feel for what it is to separate a little bit, and then maybe come back a little bit, right? From Leilani's perspective.
Mhm.
But the reality is this, and you got to accept the reality as it is sometimes we as humans fear the unknown. We fear what happens if I leave my comfort zone. Well, we don't know. We truly
Yeah.
don't know. And so we have to, and you kind of hinted to this, you said this, be comfortable being uncomfortable
Yeah.
just for a little bit, and learning not to retreat back to what we're used to.
Mhm.
And I know the kids are doing that because, again, it's a little bit different. Us as adults, we can use more discernment. We can understand that we're truly not in a fight or flight situation. These are like habits. It can be unhealthy eating habits. It can
Mhm.
be um, unhealthy, like unhealthy relationships.
Mhm.
You gotta just realize that, hey, this is not a place that's good for me.
Mhm.
And I know that in certain circumstances, you might think that it's okay to be in this said mindset or with this person or in this situation, but it's really not. And so you have to just kind of separate yourself from that, the feelings, the emotions, and just decide, is this really something I should be doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, this is important. I like this topic because it has me thinking too. I know I have a lot of work that still needs to be done with separating from, my feelings, at least separating from acting on my feelings in a way that might not be the most productive, right?
Yes.
Again, feelings, I'm not saying feelings are bad.
Mhm.
It's just they are sometimes based upon emotional truths that have no proof, no facts to back it up.
Mhm.
Um, this is good. And so, yes, I think we have some sympathy for our kids,
Yes.
right? And that's even why we got into this because I was like, why are they so anxious like this? And I'm like, well, I'm actually anxious about a lot of things.
Yeah, and theirs is actually completely biologically and developmentally based.
Yeah,
So we can have the grace, but also have that be an encouragement to us as well.
yeah.
And so as we wrap up, just wanted to highlight what our reflections will be for this
Hmm.
episode. And so if you do have our parenting potential reflections journal, or if you've just been writing down your own reflections
There's a
anywhere,
link in the description if you to email us, and we can send you a
yes,
copy of
yes,
that digital journal template.
yes. But just any way you want to engage with the reflections, what we wanted you to think about this week is to reflect on what you need to separate from and write it down. And then ask an honest tribe member what you need to separate from and write that down. Compare and ask yourself, are your lists similar? Then write down why you think you have separation anxiety for that habit, mindset, etc. Look at that because that is the root cause. And then last, write down what you can do to separate from that habit or mindset and or ask a tribe member or professional to help you with that.
Good stuff. So, again, what do you need to separate from?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this is really for you as a person because, again, our premise is that if you can be a better person, you can be a better parent. And we
Mm-hmm.
are on a long journey ourselves to be better people. We make mistakes. We are flawed individuals, but again, we own it. We admit it. We accept it, but we do try to seek better, even when we make mistakes. And
Mm-hmm.
so we believe that's the foundation for being a strong father, a strong mother,
A strong parent
a
and a
strong
strong
parent. Yeah,
person.
yeah, yeah. So we love these conversations. Again, we try to bring some good nuggets for you to chew on so that when you're driving in a car, um, you can just get some good plugins. And also, we can bring about conversation with people in your circle, in your
Mm-hmm.
tribe
Mm-hmm.
to get help, advice, get their opinion, have deep discussions, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the conclusion of this episode. I don't know if you have any parting words, Monet.
Um, I do want everybody to just really think about there are a lot of things, and we've talked about this from season one, that you could put a lot of pressure on yourself about or be discouraged about when we bring up some of these discussions. And I want you to think about again that there is something very natural from when we were all babies, from having some of these struggles. We all have them, we can all relate. And so, if any of these things seem very daunting or discouraging to you, please feel free to write in the comments or reach out, say the things that have been most difficult when thinking about these things for yourself. We want to be an encouragement to everyone. We know that there's plenty of things that we could probably feel like we need to separate from, things we have anxiety about. But I hope that just trying to relate to your child's development and this stage of separation anxiety can make you feel that much more justified in maybe some of the
Hmm.
struggles you're having.
Hmm.
And again, this is just a means to make you better so that you can ultimately parent better and help your kids to be better as well.
Until next time, y'all. Peace.
Love ya.